Hi, it's Lonnie with Crafty Traveler, and this is my husband Ernie. And in this video, we're going to show you how we put the Solera slide topper on our trailer to prove that even a DIY can be done by senior citizens. We bought the topper through Amazon, and I'll put the link below. Hope you are informed by watching this video. Okay, let's do it.
All right. First things first, after you get everything out of the tube, you take all of your parts, lay them out, and double check them against the parts list and the instructions. Now what I like to do is I sort them out according to what they're going to do, and I use either paper plates or paper bowls to put them in. That way when I'm working on them with them, then I'll have that particular group of parts with me in a neat little package rather than having to go up and down the ladder. Various parts, of course you have to have your butyl tape. That's the backing that's going to seal everything. Up here is the rail that the awning is going to go into. This particular rail happens to be 8 feet 6 inches because we measured our slider, and you want to go about 3 inches beyond each side so that you have coverage. And 2 mounting brackets that go on the slider, the rail that goes above the slider, 2 bars that will hold the awning in place. I didn't bring the awning out at this point in time because that's the last thing that you do. And then screws that either are a round head or flat head. The round head screws will go mount the bar here, and the flat heads will mount the brackets into the slider. Tools, driver, hand driver. These are square drives, so you have to have the particular bits, and it was recommended by other folks that you finish driving the screw in by hand, because especially in the top part where the rail goes, that's usually just going into insulation. And then I'm going to use probably Gorilla Glue to really lock them in tight. Then of course the other thing that you have to have is a good long measuring stick so that you get the center of everything. You want the center of that rail, and you want the center of where your slider is, so that everything lines up correctly when you install it. First thing first, applying the butyl tape. You're going to have to put 2 rows on the back of this so that they overlap, and as you put it on, make sure you overlap the edge. You can always cut off the excess later, and then you want to press the 2 edges together to make sure you get a good seal. This is going to be the bracket that goes on the slider. Brackets go in here, and then there's a secondary bracket that mounts on top of that, so you can adjust the height of where your awning sits once you've got it installed and make final adjustments. You don't want the canvas to touch the top of this T-rail here when it rolls out. So you've got plenty of adjustment. You can adjust it high or low with the bracket. now applying the butyl tape. Give it a nice little press in. The nice thing about this stuff is it's very sticky, so it'll help hold the bracket in place when you're mounting it. As I said before, on these brackets you have to put 2 rows of the tape. It'll press out once you install it. And you can always lightly remove the excess. So I'm going to press this together to form a seal. Water is the enemy, so you want to avoid damage at all costs.
Okay.
Notice the 2 rows pressed together so that there's no gaps between them. And then of course as you apply it, it'll draw itself in and then press itself together even better. What I'm doing now in preparation for installing the Solera slider topper is I'm making some 3.5-inch templates that will give me a constant distance between the top of the slider and where the rail is going to go. I'm just going to use a little 1x2 and then stick it on with the butyl tape so it will hold in place when I mount the rail. Cutting. I made 3, so I'll have one in the center and one at each end of the slider. And that'll give me a consistent level measurement all the way across. I'm just pre-applying some of the tape, the double stick putty tape, on the back of my templates so that when I get ready to mount the rail, I'll set those in place and this will hold them up. Getting ready to mount the rails that will hold the brackets where the awning goes. These have a little rail at the top and that's mounted upward against the edge of the slider molding.
Talk.
I'm pressing the rail in place so it will stay. The first screw that I'm going to mount is the center screw. That will ensure that I can set level correctly. We get it started first, then back it out. Get a little drop of Gorilla Glue on it. It also helps give a little extra sealing power. Wipe off the excess putty. And a drop of Gorilla Glue. Just these little extra things give you peace of mind to know that you've sealed everything possible. I brought my hand driver. I'm going to check the torque on every screw to make sure it's not overly torqued but firmly in place. And then that Gorilla Glue, once it's dry, will be a nice locking agent. Here I am running the last screw in of the right side with the Gorilla Glue on it. Again, I underset the torque on the brake of the screwdriver so that I wouldn't over torque them as I installed them. Now I'm just going to hand tighten all the screws in place. And later, before we install the awning here, we will come out and clean up the edges, clean up the face, make it nice and pretty. Right now I'm just setting my templates in place that will help me get a straight line. There we go. I've already measured the entire length. It's 90 and 5/8, or 45 and 5/16 will be my center. The length of my rail that the awning goes into is 102 and an eighth. So my center will be 51 and a 16th. And we have our mark, which happens to be the center hole. What I did to give myself a solid surface to work on was use a 4x10, and that way when I lay out the tape I'll be able to press down and not worry about things falling over and things flopping around. There's two ridges that you can lay this right into. Better put more caulking up there than less. Once you break the integrity of the seal, you can have water damage inside and not know it. You may see I am transferring my center mark to the top of the template so that I can line it up with the center mark on the rail. It's always good to have a little combination square. So what we're doing now is setting the top rail on the center mark. Okay, now getting ready to run in the screws on the top rail. You notice how much it overlaps? That's the idea, is to have that overlap. That's key in a successful installation. It may be that up this high I'm hitting frame, which is great. That way I'll have a solid installation. And to finish it, I'm adding a little dab of Gorilla Glue. Finish torquing manually. Then I'm going to go each side to make sure that everything is level and flat. If you do one side, you may end up with the rail sticking up on the other side. So it's best to do it a little at a time. It may seem tenuous, but better be safe than sorry. Last screw of the rail. Drill it in, back it out. Put some Gorilla Glue on it. Jam it in there. Hand tighten. I'm now going to lay a bead of silicone right above the edge of that track to seal it and make it so that it's sealed from the top. Every screw hole has been sealed. It's got the butyl tape on the back to seal it behind. That way you got a good seal all the way around. I'm using a lifetime seal warranty silicone too. That's white because the edge of the trailer is white. I'll cure in about 24 hours. Then we'll come back and finish up the awning mount. Okay, now we're at the point where we can install the awning and the rest of the components of the slider topper. Now, in most cases, if you see other videos, you'll see them installing the video from right to left. But because we have the garage in the way, it would inhibit our ability to get the whole 8.5 foot topper up there. We're going to have to go from left to right to get the bead inside of the holder at the top. Okay, now I'm going to install the rod into the bracket of the awning. There's a hole in the bottom here that has to line up with the hole in the rod, and this end cap has a groove in it that has to line up when you insert it. in the end of there, using the screw that's supplied with it, which is self-tapping. Now drive it in to get it to seat. And I'm going to add some Loctite to that so that it'll just be a little extra insurance of locking everything in place. And we'll have to do the same thing at the other end. Lining the hole with the hole in the bottom. And aligning the groove in the end cap so that everything will stay in place once it's inserted. Again, I'm starting the self-tapping screw just lightly to get it in there. And I'm going to add a little Loctite to it. Make sure it stays once it's in there. Okay, seems solid. Just to make sure everything is tight and in place. And I'm just checking the tightness at the other end and make sure everything is in tight. Okay, it's recommended that you have your awning open at least one lap around so that you have some slack to work with as you're inserting this end into the channel. The other thing I have to do before I start is I have to open up the ends just a little bit to get a clean start and put a little bit of silicone based lube up in the track for a few inches so that it will lube itself as it goes down. I'm now opening up the end using a pair of needle nose pliers. Just bend it down a little bit, just to get it out of the way. And you want to check and make sure there's no burrs in there. Then we'll just shoot a little bit of lube in. I'm inserting the left side receiver bracket for the rod because we'll need that for stability as we install the awning. Now there's two adjustments, a low and a high, and depending on where you get clearance at the top here, we may have to readjust. I'm going to look at it and just eyeball it and say I'll probably want to use the higher setting, so I'm going to pre-install this bracket in place, because when you have that will be given a final alignment. And then I'm going to use a little bit of tape to hold it in place, just in case it has a mind of its own as we insert the awning.
I want to introduce you to my son Brian. He's going to help us with this part because he's got muscle and I don't. And he has a YouTube channel also.
It's called Blue Storm Wyvern.
And he, what do you do on that channel?
I do unboxings and reviews of certain toys and manga and video games and things
music.
of that nature, and
And-
music,
yeah.
CDs.
So Blue Storm Wyvern is his YouTube channel. Check it out. Okay, what do you want us to do, Ernie? here.
Stop. I'm sliding the bracket into place. Now we're going to mounted the awning in the rail and then put the brackets in place so that they would align with the rods. Now we have to go back and center to make sure there's the same amount of awning over each side. And this will hold itself in place because it's all pre-installed in place. I'm also going to look at how well it clears the top of the T-molding. I'm now going to get up on the ladder and check the amount of overlap on each side of the slider to make sure it's equal on both sides. It's just a matter of doing. And 3. So we're good there. Now my rod's a little bit short, so I may have to drill a second hole in this in order to get it lagged down with 2 screws. So the next thing I have to do is pull the pins to set the tension on these, and then I will drill a second hole into this to make sure that this is locked in place. Came out just a little bit short. I'm now removing the spring clips on the awning. Pulling out the spring clip. So I'm saving both of these, and I've got a special bag with all the trailer instructions and odd parts. These will be saved in a bag just in case we have to pull this off for repair in the trailer. This will now give tension to the awning itself. And before I put the final 2 screws in that will lock this in place, we'll run this out to make sure. And if it's too high, we can also, there's a nice slope to it, but you want to have a nice slope to it so that everything runs off.
Wait.
Okay, now that everything's in place and aligned, we're going to start locking things in place. The first thing are the plates that hold the rods, which are done by 2 of these small little set screws on each side. And they come preloaded with locking compound. Just setting them in place by hand, and then I will hand tighten with an Allen wrench. I'm now finishing the 4th set screw, locking it in place, and drilling the final. I'm going to put the locking screws in the top of the rail. That will keep the awning from going side to side. Once they're locked in, they go about it.
us put this topper on, maybe you'll be able to do it too. There are other videos on YouTube that we suggest that you watch, and of course you need
The right tool, make sure you have your instructions, make sure you have all your parts, and have an extra couple pairs of hands and a couple of ladders, because you're going to need them. So with the right tool and good preparation, you'll get her done.
Okay, we hope you liked this video and were informed by it. If you liked it, give us a thumbs up, share with your friends, comment, and please subscribe. Thank you for watching.